Hi, and thank you for listening to another episode of Tu Tia Bruja. I'm Bex Carlos, your host. So, this is a little late because technically the anniversary of the show was on Monday. It's been 2 years. It's been 2 years since I started this show. And don't get me wrong, I definitely tried to record something on Monday and even yesterday. And there were some technical things. There were some lack of focuses. And I just didn't know what to say. I just felt like I had so much to say and I hadn't recorded in a little bit. So I'm just gonna be very candid. I don't even think I'm gonna edit this. Hopefully it sounds okay, but I'm just gonna speak from the heart. And I want to say thank you to anyone who's spent time listening to this show. The listeners, the patrons, thank you so much. Y'all help fund this effort. It's not all just on me, and I really value that people take my creation and get something from it. I'm really glad that anything I've said has been helpful. And, there are times I want you to know that I'm wrong. Obviously, we're all on our journey of growth. And honestly, there are some episodes that I look back to and I'm like, I don't think that way anymore because I feel like growth is something that we're all doing. I don't have all the answers. I'm just solely a person who is creating a show about spirituality and witchcraft and how using them as a part of your life can be such a huge medicine and way of invoking back your power. But that being said, I don't want anyone to think that magic or shadow work or anything like that is a substitution for seeking out real mental health services. I think it's a very supplemental part. And obviously, shadow work is something that comes from the studies of Carl Jung. I think that's how you pronounce it. Don't come after me. Anyway, but the whole point is it's supposed to be something that helps make your life better. It's not supposed to be the end all be all, right? I think it's very empowering and powerful to, because I focus mostly on ancestral magic. And, a big part I think of getting in touch with my ancestors is understanding different parts of me. So a lot of different components of this show. You have the spiritual witchcraft element of it. You have us talking about ghosts and stuff and true crime. And I kind of want to talk about, because the further that I dig into my lineage, the more that I realize why I'm interested in those things as well. Because, I think that we talk about generational curses and stuff like that. And yeah, that's a part of us. But we also have generational knowledge and wisdom and experience. Because, after a certain point of being familiar with something, it just seems like it becomes a part of your identity for better or for worse. And it's also a way of understanding things we don't know, right? So I feel like I, from a very young age, watched Unsolved Mysteries because I was fascinated by people just disappearing, what makes people disappear, in whatever way that might be, whether through violence of another human, whether it be through the possibility of alien abduction, whether it's the fact that they encountered a cryptid and they met their demise. There's just the world is so large and unknown, and there's so many different elements of it. And, I've always had these interests, and I think that explains why, even as an adult, I still find these things fascinating. And there's been a history of violence towards family members, in my pretty immediate family. And a lot of that stuff is how do you cope with something, and even if you're figuring it out in hindsight, right? It's the realization that that's a part of you. And since this show is all about digging into the root and figuring out what makes us tick and doing that shadow work and all that, in addition to just talking about what's going on in the world, I really want to recommend a podcast that was really powerful. So it's called The Root of Evil, and it's the true story of the Hodel family. And this is a very small segment of what the story is. But essentially, there was this woman who was adopted and she was told she was biracial, and come to find out through all these life events, she ends up connecting with her birth mother, and her birth mother is a survivor of sexual violence, but also perpetrating the cycle of violence. And because she had no contact with this woman her whole childhood, as an adult, she's able to kind of understand and make sense. And like through interactions with her mother, she finds out that her grandfather was this man named George Hodel, who, amongst a lot of things, was a suspect in the Black Dahlia murder. What's interesting, right, is like there are a lot of things that run through our blood, like violence and all these different things. And this is just one extreme case of what happens to a family when violence is perpetrated on each other time and time again. Obviously, it's a very difficult listen. It's a very hard discussion. But I think that that's part of the thing about like doing ancestral work, is that it's not all fun and games. It's a lot of like, well, why do these things happen? These two women, their mother was Fauna Hodel, and I can't remember if she changed her name, but so Yvette and Rasha are so they would be, I guess, the great granddaughters of George Hodel, who is the patriarch of this family. But they have a lot of deep and healing and meaningful conversations amongst them. I think that is a really powerful listen, but obviously very heavy. I just really have been, I'm not going to lie, it's been a heavy bit. I think that that's why I'm having a hard time creating, right? Because we just keep seeing, and not that, living in the United States, we see violence all the time, right? Like, indifference and cruelty to the unhoused is violence. There are all these different forms of violence. But I think that just right now, I don't know, with the Mercury's retrograde, which, by the way, a lot of people's cars fell victim to. So if that was something you experienced, this Gemini retrograde in Mercury was tough. Like, a lot of us felt it real hard. I had some stuff go down, friends and family, even friends on the internet, like, because y'all are my friends too. But, just, it's wild when it's just not one or two people that, like, it's just a whole lot. I've been having a hard time creating, but I really wanted to pop on here, just talk about how much this show has meant to me. We've charted in, I think, 13 countries at this point. So thank you to all of the international listeners as well as the listeners in the US, because y'all in the US understand where a lot of this is coming from because you're experiencing it with me. And a lot of people who are international listeners, you all got out, and I'm very happy for you. I truly am. I'm waiting for the day where I can possibly live somewhere else. So it's all part of what's going on. And the ones who are listening who just like by whim were like, you know what, let's listen to this podcast on Spotify or many of the other million places you can find this show. Thank you for taking a chance. I just want to gush about all of you, and I really appreciate everything that y'all have done and listening and contributing to the show. I'm thank you for wanting to hear me talk about spirituality and the things that are helping me get through life sometimes. I'm glad to be a resource and to help. A lot of people have told me that the show has helped them, because like magic for me, right, is when you have that aha moment and the light bulb kind of just goes on. Spiritual practices, magic, they go hand in hand with social justice. It's about liberation. It's about freedom. It's about protecting yourself from the oppressor. In addition to being able to create this show, I've been able to make so many rad connections. I love that we've done so much work uplifting different marginalized magic practitioners and independent creators and shops and just all these folks just doing really rad stuff at the intersection of being Black and brown and creative or witchy or just really putting something into the world that's rad, like I'm really proud of all the people who have been on this show, who have taken a chance on me, that you've connected with them. So thank you. among all the folks, right? Like I love everyone, but one person I have to talk about right now is my dear friend. I'm so happy to live in the same timeline as her, is Miss Marcella Kroll. So I don't know if you knew this, but Marcella Kroll had a couple of different divination tools. They had the Dreamers Tarot deck, which I have had to buy a second copy. Love it. I had the Roast Iconic Oracle deck. I like to use it supplementally as kind of a finisher with another, divination tool, typically tarot. I just got the Sacred Symbols Oracle deck, and I think that this is my favorite. This is my favorite tool so far. I've been reading for a lot of people, and they've all said that it's really resonated. And it's funny because my mom distrusts this kind of stuff a little bit, because I think that she is like, and which is fair, and I think that's why a lot of people distrust, is that they're like, well, you know something about me, you can just reiterate it back. You're right. I'm just reading the card as it's coming. One of the first few times I'm playing with it and using it. So I am still learning, like, kind of the meanings, but like with this Oracle deck, like, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? And that's what I'm really enjoying about it the most, is that it's a lot simpler. I love tarot, but there's so much nuance and information and symbolism and numerology and things to memorize. And, I'm still a student of tarot, but this Oracle deck is just, it's so beautiful in the colors. Marcella just did such a beautiful job, and I really feel for you if you didn't get one, because she's archived her work. I think in the future she's going to re-release Sacred Symbols, but she was doing these as an independent artist, was going through a printer. Anyway, but she did these, on her own. They're just... It's interesting because this is the 3rd edition, and she did a live the other day, and she was explaining the difference between the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition. And it was like the 1st edition was just like, here we are, we're going to create this many. And then she went back and revised some stuff in the 2nd one. And then in the 3rd one, she had gotten sober, and she had decided to completely redo it to what felt right to her. Just the power of this deck alone, after it's been changed a little bit, like, is just so... I wonder what the first printing feels like, is what I'm saying, because there are certain tools that you just hold them in your hands and they just feel right. And I don't know what it is about this. It just feels that way. And it's funny because I did an episode with Francesca Hoagie, who is also friends with Marcella. And she had said that when she first got the deck, she would take it with her and she would read for people, and it would just be spot on for strangers, And I think that that's always like the most telling, I guess, in people's opinions, when you can like really read for them. And intuition has a lot to do with it, but I think that this tool is just so useful. And it's interesting because I feel that way about all of Marcella's tools, to be quite honest. I used the Dreamers Tarot deck recently. I do lock-ins for kids because I really just like being able to provide a little clarity. And typically, I think we all were teenagers once. The one that they want the most clarity on is like love life. And I think that, sometimes it's nice because I like being in that role of like tu tia bruja, your witchy aunt. And I want to just... This is a vessel, this is a mirror, and it helps read back to them what they need to know. And sometimes it's just like, slow your roll. Just like enjoy living life. Humans are going to come and go. And that can be hard, when they just want their relationships to work out. But it's hard at any age, It just feels like the end of the world at that age. But this is to say, there's something about this tool, and when she reprints again, I'm highly going to suggest that you get one, because I think in any form these cards are going to be powerful. But I want to read a card to finish off this episode. Thank you for letting me talk magic and just sort of be here in this space together and reminisce. I really miss it, and I think when I feel that life isn't so heavy, I will create again. I have some stuff that I'm going to share on Patreon, some episodes that I just didn't even know how to use necessarily for people who just want extra content and would love to hear it. So yeah, please check that out there. I have one with Melissa Sanova. Okay, I'm gonna pull a card. Okay, let's see. Well, before I pull a card, I just gonna shuffle them really well. I'm gonna really focus on my breath. I'm really gonna get into a space to be able to read it. I think I'm gonna try to interpret it before I read the meanings. Let's see how close I get. Okay, holy shit. No joke. No fucking joke. I pulled this card when I recorded yesterday, and I'm going to put this on my Patreon so that you can see the proof. But this is the new moon card. Marcella Crawl, you magical human. You are truly not of this earth. Truly. I love you. I just want you to know that I think that you are the most magical person. The new moon card. So if you needed something to be your sign, if you needed someone to reiterate what you already know, this is it, baby. Some of us need to set a specific date, right? Like we need to say like on Monday, my diet starts, or on Monday, my exercise routine starts, or on Monday, I'm no longer going to make the effort to contact them, or I'm whatever thing you're trying to start or you're trying to end. This is your sign. Okay? This is your sign. And I really just want you to know that it's going to be really hard. Like, it's going to be really hard, but you need to have the willpower to see it through. And this is not me just like speaking to you, right? This is also me speaking to myself, because I realize that I'm getting older and I can't keep eating the way that I'm eating. And I love cheese, but it doesn't love me back. You know what I mean? So anyway, this is your sign, babes. And it's funny because I don't need to necessarily look this up because I looked it up when I was recording yesterday, but I am going to do it just for the sake of what you can interpret from it, which is a new beginning, a fresh start, an auspicious time to start new projects. Drawing this card invites you to begin again. Meditate on this or at the new moon and bring new energy into your life. Write a list of intentions, dreams, goals, and wishes to support new direction and invite in the inspiration. Symbol, new moon. The new moon is an earth-based religions, is a symbol of new beginnings and a fortunate time to plant new seeds for the future. Boom, babe. Okay, this is definitely going up immediately. I am just so baffled. I'm so baffled at this tool and at Marcella Crawl, and keep an eye out for when she possibly sells those again. They're magical, I'm telling you. Thank you for listening. It's been 2 years of this union. Thank you for coming back. Check me out on Instagram at BexBCasting. You can follow me on Patreon, which is at Tutia Bruja. Instagram page. At some point, I think maybe my life would be made easier if I hire a virtual assistant. So if that's something you're interested in, like, send me an email. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you. Bye.
Yeah.